Thank you very much for joining to our second session here. I know in our first session we talked about Copilot in Word, Copilot in Teams, OneDrive and stuff. Now on this particular session, I want to do a little bit of deeper dive on focus on a particular use case. Okay. With Copilot turned on in your data, grounds into your data, and you can ask all kind of questions, meeting transcripts, documents that you're working on, email. Now we want to utilize something called an agent. Okay, agent is something that is going to be very super focused on a particular use case or particular idea or a document. If you have, let's say, one of the department is dealing with the training manuals, and I want to utilize the power of Copilot. So information is only grounded on that particular list of documents. Like we deal with policy and procedures, right? We have trainings that we need to deal with. For instance, if you are a part of a Department of Public Safety, you have, if you are, Raleigh Police, you need to go through so many training manuals, training stuff. You need to go to training academy, and based on my experience working with the law enforcement, there's lots of policy and procedures that you need to follow. What happens when you stop someone on an intersection? What happens when there is a bloodborne pathogens involved cases? What happens if there is an active homicide cases? It's like so many different policies. It's really critical that we follow this policy and procedures. So with utilizing SharePoint agents, now you want to turn all of the power of LLM and focus into a particular topic. And you can ground that into documents that you have. So let's talk about that. So this is particularly utilizing focused, feature or focused, experience for documents or a topic, particularly on the SharePoint side of it. Okay. So here are some of the topics that we're going to talk about. I'm going to quickly do the prompting recap, but that's like a new engineering that everybody needs to know about now. We have an LLM that's trained into a lot of public data out there. The only ways to talk with LLM is through text right now. I know there's lots of revolution happening on this space. There might be voice, there might be audio, videos, lots of things. But with the LLM that we have with Copilot Chat, the text is the primary. So we really need to hone in on our prompting skills. So I'm going to do a little recap on that. You guys probably must have heard it in your previous session. Then we're going to talk about what are agents. What are the difference between different agents? There's an excellent workshop by my colleague Mose. He's also doing another agents workshop on Copilot Studio. So that's like extension. Now you have a SharePoint agent. Now you want to bring in more data from public internet and you want to ground it, make it really solid agent. So your job is, like an investigator who's working on a particular use cases, and then Copilot can be your, help you on the investigation. You're still going to be a primary chief investigator, but Copilot is going to be a co-pilot, right? Not a pilot. You're still in a pilot seat. Copilot is going to help you to make your investigations really effective. Get that information instead of spending 15 hours looking through your emails and your information on your dockets. It will help power of LLM and get that information quickly so you can fast forward your investigation quickly. So that's what we're going to talk about. And then I'm going to deeply dive into the SharePoint agent. How is that different from other agents? We're going to see, I have specific use cases for Department of Public Safety stuff. So we're going to take a look at that. How does that work? And just kind of highlight some features coming to GCC and open questions. All right, before we start, any thoughts, process, questions you guys might have? Okay. All right, so just kind of recap art of prompting. This is very effective, especially when you're dealing with LLM. This is just a manuscript I put together. Like I was discussing in our previous session, Copilot can talk with you any human language. It can be just simple as, hey, help me draft a document, or help me make a recipe for pasta or a really good hamburger. But a lot of people get really technical on how they make their hamburgers, right? They want medium rare or rare. They want to add some bacon on it. They want to add some cheese on it. They want to add some vegetables. It's just like more and more context that you provide, more and more effective results that it's going to bring you. Like creating a pasta, give me a pasta recipe. Boom, here you go. Boil the water, add some linguine, heat them up, and the other, you just put a sauce, put them together, ready to go. Versus if you want to be really specific, what kind of pasta you want to create. You want to do a fettuccine, you want to do an angelier, like a linguine kind of stuff. Like you can tell it. And you can also ask Copilot to take a role. Hey, Copilot, I want you to take a role of a really good pasta, chef or Michelin star. You can reference it. Like, I want you to be a particular chef, and it's going to look at the historical data of that chef and what kind of recipe that chef is really, is perfecting on, and it's going to use that information to create a pasta recipe. So more context that you're going to provide, you can provide more role taking. You can also do that for creating a document. If you're working on a financial document, you can ask Copilot to be a financial analyst, and it's going to get all of the information that financial analyst needs to do, like profit and loss account, trial balances, all of that forecasting KPI. It knows all of that. You can ask Copilot to do a role play, and it will grab that information and feed it to you. So adding a context, allowing Copilot to role play. And how does it know about that particular role? We have billions and trillions of data that's out in the internet, and then it knows what financial analyst is supposed to do. But if we want to even go further, what kind of financial analyst and what industry? If you're working on a senior living industry might have a certain types of financial data that they produce, like occupancy rate or retention of employee. That's always big with senior living industry to retain people. So now you can feed in that information to help you prepare, and then you can add with the tone, what kind of tone that you want to utilize. If you're sending it to someone, to your manager, you want to be really serious, you want to be empathetic, inspiring, very eloquent. So you can also set the tone. And finally, you can also ask like, hey, I want this in a HTML format, or I want this in a email. I want this in a table format. And more additional information is the better. So that's just a highlight of prompting. And you should try it. You should open up your laptop and start putting up a prompt, simple, and start playing with it, probing, poking. Nothing's going to get hurt. There's a lot of energy behind the scenes that's running this. All right, so here is a few elements here. So we would like to call it a GCSE. There needs to be a specific goal. Generate a 5-bullet point. Context is to prepare me a policy updating with agency X. And then the source is focus on email and chats since June. So you can also, go back and say, I want to focus on this particular meeting. And since this timeline by this person. And use a simple language to get you up to speed. So that's just expectation. So you can, this is a really good prompt that kind of covers all of that. All right, let's talk about an agent. Okay, what is an agent? So agent is a scoped down version of Copilot, just like we're saying, it really scope it up. You can scope it to your particular use cases, and then try to train Copilot and build a model. If you're in Department of Health and Human Services, you might have a Medicare, Medicaid data that you want to utilize Copilot to kind of create a knowledge-based agent. So someone wants to ask a question about Medicare and Medicaid and Medicare information. Now that information is going to be grounded or crawled and then processed, so people can just ask any questions, be really specific into that. And I'll show you in a demonstration how you can just kind of have a human-like communication with that instead of answering all of the questions, like with FAQs or things that we publish in the internet. We can have an agent bot, like a Medicaid, Medicare bot, and feed in the information, and your folks will actually start having a conversation with it. So it's really focused. That's what the agents are. So there are two types of agent. There's a declarative agent and custom engine agent. We're going to talk about declarative agent, which is really easy to build. It will just take you a couple of minutes, anyone in this room, as long as you have rights to create an agent. Once you create an agent, it takes about 90 seconds to build that, crawl that information behind the scenes, and voila, it's ready to go, just to kind of start. But if you want to add more knowledge sources from your public internet or any other sources out, or maybe some internal information from your databases, then we go towards custom engine agents. That's where we make this complex. Because if you, let's say for the service desk, if someone is asking about, hey, I need to change a password, that's a very common one, right? We probably have written down something in something like this in a PDF, and Copilot's going to eat this up really nicely. And hey, this is what you do. Done, right? That's just a simple way to get started. You might have piles and piles of documents sitting somewhere. Just load it up in a SharePoint, run on a Copilot, and then just see how this thing works. If you want to add some information from outside and make your interaction complex, you could do that as well. That's the Copilot Studio that my colleague Mose is kind of doing that session as well. So feel free to check that out. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So I have access to a system that I use every day, but I don't have access to the database. So I can't make any kind of order analysis against what's in there. Is that a custom engine agent?
Yeah, so if you have any custom databases that is not hooked up to M365, Office 365, then there's something called extensibility that you need to plug that in into a Copilot. And there is you can use a Copilot Studio, or there is called Azure Foundry. A lot of agencies are doing some use case on that. So yeah, that's the way you want it. Anything that's in M365, Copilot knows about it, it's aware of it, it can do just click of a button, ready to go. If you want to bring in data from outside to make it even more intelligent, then yes, you'll need to do a little bit of plumbing there. All right, so here are different tools to build agents. So we're going to talk about SharePoint agents. You can also build it using Copilot Studio, Copilot Studio Agent Builder in BitChat, or Visual Studio Teams Toolkit. The whole idea about the end user workshop here is, without going in and putting a lot of effort, how can you turn on something and make it really effective? So you don't have to retrain yourself. You don't want to get into hours and hours of YouTube video to learn how to code. This is low code, no code, click of a button, utilize the power of LLM, get started. So that's where the SharePoint agent is. You just need to gather up your documents, put it into a SharePoint site, and let SharePoint site just do its work. Okay. And you can share this with your folks. And again, anything and everything that's shared inside the agent will be vetted by, the SharePoint restrictions. Yes, I can share an agent to Javier, but Javier doesn't have information to that PDF. He's not gonna get the response. So it goes back to what you have access to. Okay. So maybe you want to create a SharePoint site that can be available for a whole agency, considering all of the data that are stored there is public. There's no harm, there's no sensitive stuff. You want to create a really nice looking intranet site where we want to load up the agent, and you can utilize agent to start asking questions. So that's also a really nice use case. But if you have sensitive information, on that case is Javier might have access to something, I might not. So we'll have different experience. So with the SharePoint agents, you put your content, source your content, and then you utilize the agent and your collaboration power to do a business transformation. So it's just like, first you need to source your data where it is, and then load that into a SharePoint, and then activate the agents to start using it. So let me switch to a demo here quickly, and I'll show you this in action here.
Are there additional fees for using SharePoint Agent?
Not out of the box, no. Once you start adding on the other external sources, then that goes into the Copilot Studio purview. There might be, depending on if you're using a premium connector. So yeah, that's a little more licensing conversation, but SharePoint Agent by default, yeah, does not have it. With your specific license for, if you're state of North Carolina.
But it does.
Yes. Because you're grounding your data, so it goes back to that Copilot Frame 365, right? So you need to have a license at least for that, so you can ground it. Otherwise, you can use Copilot that, but that's not going to let you ground. You can ask questions just like ChatGPT, which is inside your wrapper, your security purview. That's great. But if you want to actually go and ground the data on your tenant, then yeah, that's where the license comes. So here, this is a standard SharePoint site. So when you build up a SharePoint site, you see a Copilot ribbon on top here. When you click on it, it automatically is built in for you. You don't have to do anything. You know, it's ready. You can start asking questions like these are some of the prompts that are available for you. What this is doing, it's crawling the information on your site pages. Let's say this might be, Department of Public Safety, a SharePoint site. It has a lot of content about SummerCon Training Academy, what happens, what kind of events are being offered for police officers, and they want to go in and kind of get information about that. So if once you hydrate your site with all of the information, you can just ask question about, you can summarize it, or you can just utilize this, or you can go to your prompt and it will give you option what kind of information that you can do here on the site level. But if I go here and say, you so what this is doing is going behind the SharePoint site pages and pulling in the information. I just loaded this up a little bit ago. Let me load it up one more time. I just recently published this page, maybe still crawling, but let's try again.
Same
Yes.
machine has a C and not a K.
Oh, it has
The real
P.
one. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know.
All right.
It matters.
Oh, no, it should not matter.
Oh.
Let's try. I don't know why this is grounding into the data in the home site. We'll get back to this one, but the idea is this site page is here that you create in the SharePoint sites. I have a page about the training academy here, and it goes into information where it is and what kind of services the training academy provides. That information is being produced here. And also There's other pages, different courses that are available, jubilee retention program. So let's see if this will work. Okay, I'm just gonna go into this site and then ask, can you summarize this page? Okay, so it's kind of pulling information from this page about what the agency does, where it is located, training programs, facilities. So in SharePoint site, it's built in. It comes with the agents, and if you have lots of pages on this site, site pages, then people can come in and just utilize it. Now, if you want to focus this into a particular topic or a discussion, you can go ahead. If you're familiar with the SharePoint sites, you can go ahead, create a document library. And on this document library, I added some policy and procedures for prisons, and management of the prisons here, and they are lined up based on a training type. This is Article 16, study release, offender maternity leave, court-related procedures. So you have all of these documents that are lined up on this document library. So now you can go ahead and create a custom agent. Like, I want to create an agent that's only targeted to this document library. I don't want you to look for any other information. I want you to just look for this one. And when you share the link to this agent link to someone else with your colleagues, or maybe you want to make it available for your agency, people can now start asking questions about these documents only. There's not going to be any other noise. This is specifically searching for these group of documents, this policy and procedures. So yes, go ahead.
Can you do something like this across multiple SharePoint lists?
Yes, you can.
Multiple.
Yep, multiple SharePoint
So
sites.
within your own.
Yep. You can do that. So for instance, let's go here. When you click on this, I have the top level site navigator. I also created one for the policy and procedure. You can create your own agent here. So let's go ahead and create it. Agent. Try one more time. Fine. Okay, let's wait for that. But let me demonstrate you what is already existing. Okay, so once you have an agent created, let me go ahead and edit this and show you behind the scenes what's happening. So I'm gonna switch it to agent that's focusing on this document library, and I'm going to edit the agent. Okay, so these are some settings behind the scenes on the agent. So overview piece is very standard. When you go to sources, now goes back to your question. Now you can ground more resources, like you can bring in data from different SharePoint sites. This is pointing to DPS Navigator site, and I'm only want to use this agent for prisons policy and procedures. That's where all of the documents are, and we're going to ask very specific questions on those documents. You can add more stuff here. And you want to bring in maybe a general training academy stuff instead of a prisons, or other training manuals that you want to bind it together, and you can expand your knowledge base here. And you can go back to other document library and select it and then feed it up. Or you can even do it for a folder. So you can go to a document library, pick 2 different files, and you can create an agent off of that. So it does not have to be document library level. I just want to use 2 PDF and make an agent based off of that. So this is where you do that. Now take this one out for now. On the next tab, there is a behavior. You want to put in some welcome messaging when someone logs into this agent, and starter prompt, like see these guys up here. You can just preload some starter prompt. I added, can you provide more details on fire safety training? So let's try to click that here. And you can also test it here when you are building this. I don't know what's happening with this. We got some information, but I wanted to be very specific about what document that it is producing it from. But it received information about the fire safety, but not exactly what I was looking for a document. And I'll show you this in a little bit. But here on the left-hand side, you have a starter prompt. You can also give agent instructions, and then you can save and close. So going back to
With the sources, I'm sorry.
yes,
The sources, can you also include a web link? Or does it have to be on the SharePoint internet intro?
if you want to include a web link, you'll have to use a Copilot Studio. SharePoint Agent is just for SharePoint. So if you do a Copilot Studio, then you can bring in the third-party link. So you can also ask questions on a specific file. Like if you go to Article 16 PDF file, and you can fire up a Copilot here. And you can start asking questions, specific one for Article 16 here. So let's see. I'm gonna do. What is Article 16 all about? Can you help me summarize this in 10 lines? So I have like, maybe 15 pager, 50 pager. It will go and start kind of grounding data here. This is a general statute established by Department of Adult Corrections, responsible for detention and corrections, Secretary of Department. So it just kind of goes and gives you a reference. So you can ask follow-up questions. What are key responsibility of Secretary of this department? So you can go ahead and start asking questions on that. So it's just like a knowledge base that you ground on, and you can kind of poke and probe and ask questions that is specific to a document or a list of document, group of document that you do. You can also do, let's try another one. So yeah, this is, yes, go ahead. As long as it can crawl, it can identify the text that is on the document. If you have a lot of images, OCR, I know we have different way to manage that as well. But as long as it is PDF, Word document, text, at least it can read. Then yes, it's readable. If you have a Unicode or some kind of random characters, then yeah, it's going to be hard. But if it's a human readable text, then yes, it will go through and crawl. Yes, go ahead.
If a document is updated several times throughout the day, is there a frequency of web crawls that it has to go through in order to update the information for code?
So behind the scenes, it utilizes the SharePoint crawling. So there is an increment crawl that happens depending on your tenant settings again, maybe every 5 minutes when the new change kind of pops up on your SharePoint file. That's where the incremental crawl kicks in. There's a continuous crawl also happening to kind of pick up where the last changes was made. And if anything were left off, there is every week, or depending on how you guys set it up, it will do a full crawl. So it's constantly updating the index. And if you're asking the question, it's also updating the index behind the scenes. So, I mean, as you can see, you can ask any specific questions, or it will also look into your file and suggest some of the questions for you. How does a secretary oversee alcoholism and chemical dependency treatment program? You can do that. And you can also ask questions to multiple files if you want to. Like you want to bundle up 2 different files and create an agent out of it, and you want to start asking questions, that's fine too. Yes, go ahead.
Kind of like a follow-up to my previous question, but so you can add an attachment here
Yes.
to compare it to the knowledge base.
Yes. So what you can do here is you can also ask, hey, Copilot, can you help me compare these two different documents? Let's say you might have the same Article 16 from last year versus this year, and you really want to find a comparison, like what changed. So you can reference two different files and ask Copilot to, hey, can you help me compare this and what's the differences? And dump that into a Microsoft Word so you can kind of utilize that information as well. You can do, like, let's say you can select on multiple files here, and you can create an agent out of it. I want to just create an agent for two different files that are really focused on one particular topic, and I want to make it available for the folks out there and utilize the power of LLM. You can do that as well. So let's take a look at another policy here. Court-related procedures, this one right here. So if you're not sure about this, let's say just join the training academy and you're not sure what this is about, you can just simply say, hey, summarize this file. What is this about? Or you can suggest next steps, like what are some of the items that I need to be on top of? Or give me 10-liner on what exactly does this does. So it's court-related procedures for state of North Carolina for public safety prisons and general access to the court, legal material, offender associates, telephone access. So if you want to look into a particular, go to a file on this particular topic, you can create a reference and it will bring you back to that page. And see, you have a follow-up, like if they're non-English speaking offenders, are they accommodated? I mean, if you are looking for that one, or anything, that you can find. So these are suggested prompt based on your context of your document. And it can be different for any document that you feed in. So go back to Office, try to utilize agent, just load one document, PDF, and just start poking and probing and see what kind of response are you going to get out of it. Might be for PMO office, might be for Department of Corrections, might be for Natural Resources, DIT. We have a lot of people from different agencies here. Just go ahead and click on it. Like I said, I didn't go back and do anything crazy. Once you bring up a SharePoint site, the agent is lit up. You can start asking questions about that site. Or if you want to do a scoped conversation, then you can create an agent on your document library or file and start asking questions as well. Yes, there is some limitations on the SharePoint agent, like how big of a file that you can load up. I can get back to, I don't have a number on top of my head, but yes, there is a limitation. Yeah. What I do generally on that cases is I utilize Power Automate. If you use Power Automate, just kind of trim that file into multiple pieces and load it up into a SharePoint site. If you use it, Javier might know a resource on Power Automate internally that can help you. Or if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We'll help you how to kind of work around. Those limitations, I think, can be addressed. We'll find out. Okay. So let's take a look at another one here. We're gonna do
Just say that.
this one here.
Try that. And then if you have a question, go back to us and say, hey, I tried this, but it's not looking, so you get your bigger.
So here, if you want to just go and ask your question, who is responsible for updating the training plans? Okay, it's combing through the documents and is several key roles in our organization, including prisons operations manager, section officer, regional staff, institutional correctional training. And remember, this is not coming from a web. This is coming from your data. So it can go and give you really specific thing that it can crawl and provide it to you. This is not coming from ChatGPT. This is not coming from Google. It is only looking at what you give it to the agent, and it's gonna make that possible. Another thing is, let's say, what is warden's roles and responsibility on a prison system? So it's going to go through that policy and comb through it, the data here. Training and development, coordination, supervision, evaluation, reporting. So you will just so just use it as a Q&A stuff for anything you want to help a prison guard who may be dealing with some situation with some inmates on this particular use cases. They just got onboarded. They don't have a time to go through stack load of policy and procedures, but they might have specific questions that's just is spinning on the head. Like, what is our policy regarding handling inmate who is supposed to go to a maternity leave? Those are very specific questions. What's our guidance regarding that? So you load that data into this, and it's not going to the internet. So you're not in a risk of getting wrong data, because internet might have, hundreds of different data, and that might be from Department of Public Safety, North Carolina, Washington, New York, or other countries, who knows what. But this is your data. You have properly vetted this data. You know about this, and this is a policy guidebook that's running in it. So use it as your knowledge base. Yes, you can use. Somebody might ask, well, we can use SharePoint search for that. But again, SharePoint search is just like a Google search. You're going to get a response with links, but you cannot have contextual conversation about a topic. Like I just asked about warden's roles and responsibility. Now it gave me how often does warden review training programs. So it's looking into that section where the warden's roles and responsibility is and giving you back the information that these might be possible questions that you might ask. Okay. If someone has a questions about how often the fire drills are conducted, we can put that here.
One question.
Yes, go ahead.
You know how when you give it a prompt on the internet and it can't really find the answer, that's when it's most likely to hallucinate. What if you ask it something that you didn't provide in your data? Is there
I think the risk of hallucination is still the whole AI ecosystem is dealing with. To get rid of chance of hallucination is, again, going back to the prompt engineering. Provide more context. Provide what exactly are you looking in the warden's roles and responsibility, or just give more information. So now it's gonna like recap and retry that effort. So yeah, there's still like slim chance of hallucinating, but you can retrain the LLM to like, no, I meant this. I want warden's responsibility about upkeeping the training manual for the duty officer in a prisoner facility. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Most majority of agencies transition and files for just having to scan all the documents from the beginning of time into a repository.
Yes.
Not all of those were done as a readable PDF.
Okay.
Talk about any kind of overhead there might be for OCR, searching through an OCR needed document and returning the results. It's like got like a history of whatever and you say archive it. It's just scan. It's just scan the PDFs, no OCR or tips or whatever. And I want to search through that for a particular item. What are the capabilities?
I think there is a special add-on for the OCR. We have a capability in M365 to do the OCR, just like if you're doing an e-discovery investigation. You can turn on a OCR on e-discovery. So if have someone scribbled a note, load it into your email, we have ability to read the text on the images. So the OCR is there. SharePoint agent, I'm not specifically sure about, especially for GCC, like yourself. We can take a look in OpenAI. There is a add-on there you can feed in, so you can utilize OCR to scan through those documents. And yeah, great use case. I know a lot of agents in state North Carolina or across the United States, they're going through that process. I was working with the customer Department of Transportation for different state agencies. Now they're feeding all of the historical data from last 40 years about the bridges, all the critical infrastructure data, everything into a SharePoint sites, going through the OCR process, tagging all of the critical bridges with the barcode scanners. So if you click on it, it will give you all of the blueprint, everything. So digitizing that stuff is very important, and we're on the right path. But yeah, OCR is there. We just need to know if that's applicable for SharePoint agent in GCC yet. Okay.
I have one follow-up question.
Yes.
If I'm building SharePoint agents for my department and I want to share it with the entirety of my organization, but I don't want to give my entire organization pro licenses, how do I get this useful agent deployed so that everyone can go into SharePoint and use that agent, but not have to have a $30 a month seat? Is that a possibility, or how is that?
So the M365 license is what that is powering this. So the $30 is going to be attached. You can create an agent in Copilot Chat, but you won't be able to ground the data in your site. So the $30 kind of opens up the window of opportunity, and this is part of that. So any other questions?
Kind of a-
Yes.
when you hear people talk about training in your AI, so in this context of the agents,
Yes.
if you saw that it was hallucinating, you could go back in and edit it and provide more context and
Yes.
more information. And is that what is meant by training? That's part of what.
So the training part is already done. The LLM training is done. The large language model, just like it's already baked. Now that baked good, it's just kind of attached to your tenant. We don't train any of with your data. So hallucination, like if you're not providing enough context, if you add more context into it, it will, reevaluate that search utilizing the power. So we're not training your data, it's already pre-trained. But adding more context is reigniting, like, hey, can you try again? So it's going to try from different angle, since now I have more information about this particular topic. So that will kind of cut the hallucination part. All right, any other questions? I know we're almost towards the end of this one. Yeah, just again, I did not really do much here. The agent is built into your SharePoint site. Start utilizing it. If you have a specific use cases, take a bunch of documents, simple ones, load it into your document library, create an agent. You don't have to do any configuration behind the scenes, really easily built in. If you want to expand it past that, now you want to bring in some information from other SharePoint sites or external sites or databases, then you need to go into something called Copilot Studio. So check the I know this is happening right now in another room. My colleague Mose is doing a Copilot Studio. All of this is being recorded. You will get a copy of all of the PDF decks. Please go check it out. That's the next step. Now you want to add more stuff into it. But yeah, that's where we start. If you have any questions, we have our CSAM, Mr. George Gonzalez here, and he'll be able to support you. Feel free to reach out to him, and we're always here to help you. Okay.